So I've had the iPhone 17 Pro Max for about 1 week, and I want to give you my 1 week later review, my thoughts on this phone and how it's stacked up over this time. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and I've had this phone for about a week now, which I understand is not a super long time, but it's enough time for me as somebody who analyzes these phones all the time, multiple different devices, to give you a really good picture of what you're getting here with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, I went with the Cosmic Orange. Mostly at first, I was going to go with silver, but I decided to go with silver for the base Pro, as that might be my main phone. We'll see. Right now, I'm still rocking the 17 Pro Max here. The orange has been growing on me a bit because it definitely reminds me of pumpkin season, you know, Thanksgiving, these holidays. I'm kind of digging it right now. I don't know that I'll dig it in about 3 or 4 months when it switches seasons, and I still would have preferred a red. With this design with a red would have been nice. But the orange definitely pops in person, and to me is the most flashy looking one this year for sure. Let's talk about the very first thing I want to talk about, which is the price to value ratio of this phone. So what I mean by that is, how much like value are we getting for the price? So this phone does retail for right around a pretty penny, $11.99, and it goes up from there. Also, if you've been noticing, Apple's prices actually have been inching up. As you do go ahead to buy an iPhone here, you'll see that we do have ourselves the iPhone 17 Pro Max starting at $11.99, but they now introduced a 2 terabyte model. So this phone actually could come in all the way up to $2,000. So I think Apple's trying to get you used to the fact that there can be $2,000 phones here in the lineup, because next year we're going to be going to the iPhone. We're probably going to have a folding phone next year. So they're probably trying to get you used to the prices are on the rise. But you can still get this for $11.99 like the 16 Pro Max. And does it feel worth the money? Well, yes, it does, because of the powerful chip, the super powerful triple camera, the really improved front-facing camera, still a super large display, and really a very long, powerful battery. However, I do have to state that I'm not loving the aluminum material versus the titanium. I understand it does dissipate heat much more, but it's just, to me, doesn't feel quite as premium. Does it look good? Yes, it's a good looking phone, but aluminum can be found on much cheaper phones. So I definitely preferred titanium. I like titanium on the iPhone Air as well. So this one, to me, not quite as good in that respect, but the heat has been great. And also, I do like it how it doesn't get fingerprinty. I do really appreciate that. I still like that they stick with the lack of fingerprints all over this one. So that aluminum is something that won't attract too much of that on this Cosmic Orange. You'll see right here, we do have this 5G antenna up here. I'm never going to love that. I don't like it. It just sticks out like a sore thumb up there. It doesn't look very good. But generally, the design is different, but I can't say it's the best looking iPhone I've ever seen after a week. I don't know what I like this two-tone look with the plateau. To me, it looks a little busy. It doesn't look quite as minimal and clean as I'd like. So I do prefer the look of the iPhone Air, as well as the 16 Pro Max that came before this over this one. But at least it looks different. We finally don't have the same looking phone as we had over the years. And some people are going to say, well, you know, every time Apple changes something, people got something to complain about. No, I'm just telling you my subjective take on it. You might think this looks amazing, and that's why I want to hear from you down below in the comments. Also, you've been seeing some things about Scratchgate down here. Apple, I think I seen an article that Apple was saying that they the MagSafe accessories in the store were scratching it up. Not necessarily that they scratch so easy, but there are reports saying also that the anodized aluminum on here is the reason why, you know, it's painted or whatever, and like it easier shows scratches, especially on the deep blue color. Glad I didn't go with that one. Not so much on the silver, but you might see it a little bit here on the orange. I got the tech woven case, so I don't really care. I'm gonna put it in the case anyway. A lot of people are gonna have cases anyway. They're paying $1,200 to $2,000 for a phone. Likely that's not gonna be an issue for most people, because you're just gonna price slap a case on it. And if you are going to be rocking the phone without a case, go with the silver option. You don't have to worry about that issue too much. Other than that, though, the phone does feel a little bit heftier after a week than I'm used to. But one thing I really, really love about this phone, this and the smaller Pro, is the edges are very rounded. They're smooth too. So while they've had this design for a while, these just feel a little smoother to hold, and I just love it. I love how it feels in the hand. It just feels very comfortable in the corner. So I think if you want a phone that feels smooth and like it wraps in your hand beautifully, you're gonna love this. Also, because the Air is so different and radically thin, this kind of felt just more like at home when I came from the Air to this. It just felt like more what I'm used to, and I think it's going to be the most popular option this year, the Pro Max and the Pro. So wrapping it up, talking about design, we do have the flash now over here and the LiDAR sensor, so they moved that away. And we do have the two-tone look, and you can see the antenna lines right here, volume markers on the right, camera control down there. And we do have, what's a nice detail is even the screws on there are orange. That's a pretty nice detail right there, flanked by the USB-C. You'll see speaker and microphone. And then again, you'll see right here that the antenna kind of wraps into the camera plateau right there. So definitely it's very orange. Even the buttons are super orange right there. Even that button is orange. The camera control is painted orange. So everything you can tell, they did pay attention to detail. For sure, that's a very big deal, but it's just going to be very subjective whether or not you like the design. Now, when it comes to the durability, this phone feels like an absolute tank. This thing is kind of like a brick. It's like heavier than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but I'm not so sure that the aluminum is more sturdy than titanium. But still, the phone definitely feels like a beast once again. I'm not too worried about any substantial damage happening to it, especially you keep it in a case. Even without a case, it's probably not going to suffer too much damage, although the aluminum will probably chip and scratch a little bit more. Other than that, the phone is durable. The casing is strong, so I don't think we're going to have any two major issues on that front with this phone. So when it comes to the display, the 6.9-inch display is definitely stunning. It's super smooth, 120 hertz, but it's brighter than before at 3000 nits. And so just like the 16 Pro Max, it's a stunning panel. It's not like overly exciting though if you had an iPhone 16 Pro Max before this, but just having that extra brightness is nice. Some people said the display looks a little bit off in the whites. I had True Tone on, that could be why. But overall, it's still very saturated without being too saturated. And it's smooth to operate. It's a smooth operator. So I think most people buy this phone. Apple's done it again, providing you a fantastic panel. You really got nothing to worry about. If you're worried about, is that display going to be nice or not? No, you got nothing to worry about. This thing is going to be phenomenal. It's one of the best out there in terms of the display quality. The overall, dynamic island hasn't changed though. So if you wanted like a smaller dynamic island or you wanted it underneath the panel, there's no improvements there whatsoever. But other than that, I really enjoy it. It's still a nice aspect ratio. It's sharp. It's smooth. It's a great panel all around the board. So let's go ahead and talk about software. Now we have iOS 26, and I do think iOS 26 is actually the real star of the show this year, not so much the hardware. And that's because of the new customizations you can do, the new liquid glass effects. And for some people, it's not going to be their favorite. But as we scroll through the OS, you will find yourself just a much different look. You can see how it kind of looks like glass there as we go through. Right there, all of the UI elements look a little bit different when you're kind of going through stuff like this. You can see at the bottom right here. So it is very noticeable, and these controls extend within settings as well. So if we go into settings and then you want to go ahead and like move something right here, you can see it kind of looks like glass there on those elements as well right there. You can also slide it like that if you want. So it's like these little attention to detail things that I still like about using the iPhone. You can also see that the icons within settings did match the customizations on the home screen. And I like how all the icons become the same color. Now clear, to me, I find that when I'm using this for a couple of days with iOS 26, that you kind of get used to you're used to like seeing the different colors and your brain remembers the color. So you kind of like got to look for apps. It's like you got to retrain your brain when they're all clear. But I guess people could get used to it. Personally, I like it the way it was and like a dark mode like that at night. I just like to leave it like that. Although if you do want to customize and get it a little bit more your take, that's fine. You also see the camera design got different here. Overall, though, I have to say after a week, though, there have been a little bit of twitchy animations from time to time. Other than that, most things are pretty much ready to go. I do think that Apple needs to do a couple of updates to optimize the software, but I'd say by maybe November, December, And maybe that's probably a little too quick. Maybe like December, January, this phone will be way better optimized than it is right now. And I do think it's going to be just pretty much flawless here when it comes to performance, but not at this current time. But it's still, the iOS 26 is still nice. It's still got a lot of nice features, and the camera definitely looks different. You kind of got to get used to this new camera design. It just has video and photo. But I think it is the star of the show, honestly. You notice that feel of the software more if you didn't have 26 before getting this phone. Now, when it comes to the performance, they actually improved the performance across the board here on the iPhone 17 line. Specifically, this Pro has much better heat management, which allows this phone to be pushed harder without the thermals like burning your hand or anything. I mean, no iPhone before burned your hand, but you get what I'm saying, like uncomfortably warm. This one doesn't do that anymore. And it has 12 gigs of RAM. Finally, we have 12 gigs of RAM on an iPhone with the new Siri, visual intelligence, and Apple Intelligence is still pretty behind the competition. But having this RAM, if they do decide to get it much better, or they get it to the point where it's way more usable, the Apple Intelligence is going to be ready to go on this 12 gig of RAM phone down the line. So I think one of the things that draws a lot of people, and I think will continue to draw a lot of people to the 17 Pro Max, is just its power inside. Everybody knows this is function, I think, over form. I think if you want the design aesthetics, you go with the Air this year. If you want the power and the inside, you go with the Pro Max. And I think just because of that, this phone and the smaller Pro is going to give a lot of people FOMO if they decide not to go with the Pro models. That's the thing about the Pro models. They always attract a lot of people because they do have the best of what Apple can put in a phone. And it's one of the reasons why I love this, is mostly some of those internal specs. Now, when it comes to battery, obviously I only got 2 cycles. It's only been a week. I've been charging it like a lot in between, so I don't cycle it up too much. But the battery just lasts and lasts. This thing is, I was using the Air initially, and that is significantly behind this phone in battery life. Maybe like 2 to 3 hours. A lot of videos are telling you it's really good, but it's nowhere near the iPhone 17 Pro Max good. So this phone has been really impressing me. I'm like going through my whole day and I'm barely touching like the 60% range if I start at 100. So this is a 2-day phone, no problem. And it charges faster than ever before. And it doesn't get too warm. So everything about this is the most exciting thing. If you go with the non-SIM card model, the US models here, you will be getting a 20%. I think it's something, it's a smaller area down here where the SIM card would have been. You get an improvement in that battery life. So it's pretty noticeable, and it's one of the best things about this phone. It feels like I can just go all day heavy without even thinking about it. And it reminds me a lot of something like the Apple Watch Ultra 3. Just, versus a smaller Series 11 like you see right here. If you get the Ultra, you'll get the longer battery life like you see here. But if you go with like a Apple Watch Series 11, you get the sleek design, smaller, comfortable, but you don't get as long battery life. Same thing here with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. You go with the smaller options, nice and cool and all, but if you go with this one, you sacrifice a little bit of weight, but you get that incredible strong battery life, and it's been good for me here. Let me go ahead and see some stats here let's see if we can find some from yesterday. So you can go right here. Now, I was on there on September 22nd, I was on there for 5 hours and 7 minutes, and I used about 44% of the battery. So that's a lot of screen time right there for only using 44% of the battery, which means you probably can get somewhere like 9 to 10 hours on this, provided that you aren't on the max brightness and using GPS. So very strong experience in the battery. So when it comes to the camera 1 week later, I'm going to tell you the main thing I've been loving: the 4x optical zoom and the 8 times. I feel like I'm using a Samsung phone basically now. You know how Samsung always has the longest zoom? Now we go 40. And I know Samsung, some people are going to laugh and say Samsung had like 40x on even their plus models, not even their max models. They got like 30 times, 50 times. But nah, the optical zoom is what's pretty good here. It goes 8 times on there. So that's close to the 10x we find on the S25 Ultra. But what I really enjoy too is the video quality, the ability to do 4K at 120. In addition to that, the cinematic mode, spatial videos, all these things are good, but really that center stage camera has been pretty useful. Having an ultra wide angle on board definitely gives you a very different look than before. Also, this is a truly a pro level camera. Let's go over here to camera settings. If you go in here and you want to start formatting to do pro raw res formats, you gotta like be wanting to do studio quality videos. But if you want to do those, there's no other option. And for a lot of professionals, this is really you cannot go with something else. If you're doing professional, this is like your B camera to your main camera if you need it in a pinch. For some people, it could actually replace a camera. If you really want to like dive and get granular with this, it could replace your camera. You can even edit your videos right here on the phone via video editing softwares applications on here. So the camera itself, a week later, I'm going to show you a couple samples here, but it's been superb. It's definitely one of the things that's making me maybe not go to the Air entirely, because I love the Air's feel. But man, the cameras on here, they're A1. And because of that, it's hard to, and even if you're not like a pro, like you can still appreciate and use the zooming abilities on here. It's very useful in the ultra wide camera as well. So you don't have to be a pro to have the Pro Max, because those zooming abilities can be useful for consumers as well, who are, taking vacations, need to zoom in on an event, zoom in on where they're at, trying to get that far out reach. It could be useful for them as well. This phone seems to charge a little bit better. It also has better network performance than ever before. So when you are making phone calls, I feel like I have better reception. I also have faster 5G, faster Wi-Fi performance. As usual, every year that should get a little bit better, or every other year. This definitely does that. And so that's about all I got to talk about here. A week later, Apple continues to offer a great phone with a high-end specs, polished feel to it, polished software. Software does need some updates to have even smoother animations and smoother optimizations, because they were still I feel like they were still in the beta process. They kind of got to get this out. But after a few more, the dot releases, this thing's gonna be butter, even more so. And so after a week, I think Apple has done enough to keep this phone very competitive, if not better than a lot of competition. And I'd give this phone about a 9 out of 10. You might be wondering, well, why didn't you get a 10 out of 10? I'm taking away a point because I'm not sure that I love the aluminum and the design more than before. But if this had like the titanium design, I feel like it would have been a 10 out of 10 basically. And also maybe removal of the dynamic island, lowering that size of the dynamic island, because the bezels are super thin, the phone charges fast, lasts a super long time. There's just not a lot to complain about. And that's why I think the scratch thing is becoming a big deal, because people want to find something to complain about. And remember, when you're seeing these articles, that negativity sells, it gets clicks. So that doesn't mean you're going to experience that. I've had this in a case all week, and even when I haven't, do you see any scratches on there? No. Take care of your stuff and it's not going to be a problem. That doesn't give, and before you start saying, oh, that's a typical Apple fanboy response, is this. Yes, while titanium is better, aluminum dissipates heat better. People have complained, I'm not going to say you because I'm not sure you did specifically, but people complained about thermals. So Apple chose the better thermal managing material, which is aluminum. And now people are saying, oh, this is a cheaper material, including me. I said it was cheaper earlier, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is more function over form. So if you care a lot about how your phone performs, the aluminum keeps your phone cooler to the touch. You got to sacrifice that titanium a little bit. It doesn't dissipate heat as well as this frame. And so for that reason, it's still a really, really strong phone. And so, yeah, I think they're playing top of the game. I want to see how the S26 Ultra stacks up to this when that comes out as well. So stay subscribed. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will catch you on the next episode. I will be covering the other iPhones as well, but we're going to do them specifically here, individual videos, because I want to keep the focus on the phone that we're covering. So I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.